My husband gives $50,000 to his sister at her wedding and tells me that I can't do anything because it's her money, but now he's angry with her because he was kicked out of the wedding. Hello Reddit, I'm your own. I live with my husband, Hal, and I'll start by telling you that we are not very wealthy people. We both work 9 to 5 jobs and earn enough to live happily while saving a little. If we had a child now, I'm not sure we would do very well, but that's not the reason we don't have kids yet. We're just waiting for the right time to have them. Hal's sister, Lexi, is the sister-in-law I mentioned before. For some reason, I've never liked her. Maybe it's because I know how manipulative she can be, and she hasn't liked me either. Hal and his parents are genuine, honest, and kind people. His parents are typical country farmers who worked hard all their lives and know and respect the value of money and a happy, simple life. Hal was raised with those values, so he is a great person and husband. Although I am from the city, I spent several years of my life on a farm with my mother before she passed away, so I've always loved a simple and happy life. No one will believe me because it sounds absurd, but having too much money also complicates things, just like having too little. I know it seems great to have a lot of money, but it is true that happiness cannot be bought. Having said that, I admit that it is better to cry in a nice car than to be just a little happy on a public bus, but that is not the point. What I mean is that happiness does not revolve around money. Our love story is not unique. We met, fell in love, and got married. It has no relevance to what I'm talking about here, so I'll spare you the unnecessary details. Now, let me tell you about my sister-in-law, who is the main player here and the main problem. When I first met Lexi, I felt very confused because she seemed completely different from the rest of her family. Since Lexi worked in a different city, she was the last member of Hal's family that I met. I had met her parents a month before, and they seemed extremely nice and kind. We bonded over the fact that I had also grown up on a farm. When I met Lexi, I felt a little confused, as if she had been adopted after she became an adult. That's how different she was from the rest of her family. I later found out that Lexi spent most of her childhood away from her parents and lived with her aunt in the city, so she wasn't like her real family. I think I already mentioned that since the first time I met her, Lexi never wanted me. Have you heard that expression from today's kids? Since day one? Well, that's how she was with me. She didn't even try to hide her dislike, and I don't know if it was because she had high standards for her brother or just had a problem with me. But it soon became clear that she didn't appreciate me coming into her family. She spoke to me rudely and wasn't interested in talking to me. I kept trying, thinking maybe she just didn't know me yet, and over time, she might come to like me a little. But the opposite happened. Her hatred and dislike grew over time. Because of how she treated me, I didn't like her either. I'm not Mother Teresa. I can only endure to a certain extent. Little by little, I began to notice how she emotionally manipulated her parents and brother and used them. When I started to interfere with our relationship, it got even worse. She did everything she could to get rid of me and insulted me every chance she got. At every party or gathering, she tried to make me look bad in front of others, but I never argued with her or told Hal about it because both he and his parents genuinely loved her too. I believed that once we were married, she would understand and accept me. I was willing to accept her even after how she had treated me. But you know what she did? She tried to cancel my wedding or at least create some drama to make me look bad. A few days before the wedding, my ex-boyfriend contacted me and told me that my sister-in-law had talked to him, asking him to show up at my wedding to cause chaos. She even offered to pay him to do it, hoping he would hate me enough to accept. Luckily for me, he was over me and didn't want anything to do with me romantically, so he didn't play along. I told Hal about this, but he refused to believe me. I even tried telling his parents, but they said it was probably someone else who was jealous of me. Their plan failed, and my wedding went well, but the fact that she tried showed me that she didn't care about me or her own brother. Otherwise, she wouldn't have tried to ruin our day. Every time she tried something, I tried to show Hal the truth about how she really was, but he always refused to see it. I can't blame him at all. His sister is someone he didn't see much of when he was a kid. She would come home for parties and stuff like that, but she didn't stay long. She only came back after college, so both he and his parents adore her and refuse to believe that she could do anything wrong. Besides, Lexi is very smart and rarely makes mistakes in front of them. And when she does, and I point it out, they just say it was a mistake or a joke. For example, one time at our anniversary party, she told the guests that Hal and she had caught me cheating. When one of my friends heard it and told me, I had to come clean with everyone. We followed the rumor to her, and when we confronted her, she laughed and said it was a joke. That was the only time Hal got angry with her, but it only lasted one day. Later, she apologized to me and said she had no bad intentions. He forgave her, and of course, her parents forgave her too. As you can see, she loved to manipulate everyone and she had practice, so she was very good at it. Look, I tried to save my husband and my in-laws as much as I could, but when the only person who always got hurt in all this was me, I had to stop. Lexi is very cunning, and my husband almost never believes me when it comes to her. He refuses to think that she is a bad person who does not care about him. She is not a fool and can clearly see that we don't get along, so he just stays out of it. Anyway, after trying and failing many times almost 2 years ago, I decided to give up and stop trying to show my husband and my father-in-law the real side of my sister-in-law. I have my own life to focus on, so I let her do whatever she wanted as long as she didn't cause problems in my life. I tried to avoid her as much as possible and stopped playing her childish games. As a result, she left me alone. I don't know why, but when Lexi started a serious relationship a few months ago and told us that her fiancé proposed to her, I was happy for her. When I heard this, I wished she would have a happy life with him and move away from us. But a few days ago, I found out that my husband is planning to give his sister $50,000 as a wedding gift. When he first sat down with me to talk about it, he mentioned wanting to give her something special. I told him he could give her whatever he wanted. I know how much he loves her and how important it is for him to make her happy. But I assumed he meant something like an automatic coffee maker or a nice dishwasher, not a whole year's salary. I asked him what was wrong and explained that that was our savings and that we would need it for house repairs and other things in a few months. He replied that it was his decision, that most of the money was his and he could do whatever he wanted with it. I got confused and asked him how he came to the decision to just give her cash. He tried to make excuses, but when I asked him if this was his idea, he told me that Lexi had asked him for help to have her dream wedding and that he would not hesitate to make her dream come true. I told him that she didn't need that much money and that there was no way she would use it responsibly. I also reminded him that his parents had already given her the money they had saved. But he refused to listen. His parents had saved a lot of money so that both Hal and his sister could use it at their weddings. They tried to give it to us when we got married, but we refused because we wanted a small wedding. We asked them to keep it for themselves. Believe me, it was a good amount, enough to make a memorable wedding using only half. So I called my in-laws to confirm if she had already used their money, and they told me something even more impressive. It turns out that since we had not used the money, they had given her all their savings, which would be more than enough no matter what she was planning. I could literally fly a giraffe from Africa for the reception if I wanted to. Well, I don't know how much that would cost, but just to make it clear, it's a lot of money. I tried calling Lexi, but she refused to answer. At this point, I'm pretty sure she's doing this for fun since she knows that her brother will do anything for her. I told all this to my husband, and he just told me that he didn't care if she had enough or not. She asked him for something as a gift, and he is going to give it to her. Now, do you understand what I'm going through? I mean, my husband refuses to listen, and he is very stubborn. But I don't think it's right to spend that amount on a gift. Update 1. It's been almost 2 weeks, and enough has happened to share another update. My sister-in-law's wedding is coming up, and I don't think I can stop my husband from giving her the money. I have tried, but he just won't listen. Let me tell you what happened. First, I want to thank you all for supporting me and giving me good suggestions. Also, some of you told me that I should understand why my husband is doing this and support him. Let me make something clear. I am an understanding wife. Otherwise, I would have left him a long time ago when he refused to see the truth about his sister. I have done a lot for him, and he has done a lot for me, but I can't just sit back and let him waste our money like this. This time, I have confirmed that Lexi doesn't need the money at all. She's just using him and his parents as if they were an ATM and is planning to move far away. Honestly, the last part is great for me, but still unfair. Also, I think I didn't explain this clearly in my main post, but the money my husband is using to pay his sister is coming from our savings. Yes, he has contributed more money than me, but does that really give him the right to use it all on her when I have repeatedly told him no? Plus, we are married. At this point, there shouldn't be his money and my money. It's our money, and we need it. I would understand if we were rich and it didn't matter how much it's worth, but we're not. We don't have much money, so why waste it? At least that's what I thought. Now, I don't know what to do. A few days ago, I spoke to my husband again about the $50,000. I told him that it was an absurd amount to give when we were not doing well financially. I asked him if he could give her a smaller amount, but just like last time, he refused to listen to me. He told me that together we would earn the money again, and that everything would be fine. I explained to him that with this logic, we could easily fall into a very serious debt. Believe me, I did everything possible. I sat down with him and explained how his sister was using him and not giving him any advice. For some reason, this made him angry. He told me that his decision was final and that he needed to trust him and his sister more. He said that he had thought about this decision carefully before talking to me. She was his only sister, and this would hopefully be her only wedding, so he wanted to give her whatever she wanted, no matter what. At this point, I couldn't even blame him. He made it clear he was done with the discussion and asked me not to bring it up again. Hearing all this made me so sad because he cares so much about a person who doesn't even think about him. I feel bad for the day he finally realizes the truth about her. After this, I decided to first find out what Lexi was doing with the wedding money. I called a couple of people. I asked this person to act like she was mad at me so I could get information without raising suspicion. She knows Lexi can be a bit of a monster when it comes to me, so she gave me the heads up. I asked her what was going on, and she told me that Lexi was doing well financially, that she already had the wedding mostly covered, and was saving everything else to move and open a business with her new husband. Lexi's fiancé, Simon, seems like a nice guy, but I've only talked to him a few times. Honestly, he can't be that nice if he's willing to marry Lexi. No normal person would willingly marry her. Anyway, I wish Lexi would just marry him and walk out of our lives, taking only her parents' money. But of course, I had to get involved too. I have told my husband what Lexi plans to do with the money, but he doesn't seem to care or believe me. I have told my husband that he can give her the money he sees fit because, at the end of the day, there is nothing I can do to convince him, but that he cannot take my part of the savings. His reaction was to tell me that we were both invited to the wedding and that the appropriate thing is that we would give her a gift together. So I replied that I had no problem with giving her a gift, but not that kind of gift. That if he wanted to spend all his savings, he was free to do so, but at least one of the two should be responsible. Even so, I have taken my part of the savings and moved it to another account. Better safe than sorry. But it's clear that if he spends everything he has, our finances will be affected. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and I've discovered something that has me in a dilemma. Tell me, if you were in my position and discovered something that could hurt Lexi, would you give her the information or let her suffer? Let me explain what I'm talking about. After my last update, I didn't try to tell my husband what my sister-in-law was planning because it didn't make sense. My husband didn't believe me when I told him, and I don't think his parents had a different reaction, so what was the point of even trying? To be completely honest, at this point I've pretty much given up on trying to convince my husband or my in-laws. I knew it wasn't going to work. I was ready to say goodbye to the money and see what happened because, no matter how hard I tried, my husband was not going to understand. I told them that he is a very stubborn person and that when it comes to people he loves, he will gladly help them, even at his own cost. We talked about the subject once again, but it ended in an argument. This time, it wasn't about the money itself. If he wanted to give Lexi the amount he considered appropriate, he was free to do so, but he better be careful about trusting her too much. I warned him again that all this was not going to end well. I told him that he was blind to her manipulations for a long time and that when the truth finally came to light, it would hurt him deeply. He told me that I had a wrong impression of his sister and said he felt bad about the tense relationship between us. He told me that although Lexi was different from him and his parents, she still had a good heart. He was sure that she would never betray her family. He even said that if we ever needed help in the future, she would support us just like she was doing now. I almost gave up completely, but before I did, I wanted to find out a little more about what Lexi and her fiancé, Simon, were up to. I couldn't get any new information from my friend, so I started doing my own research. By luck or fate, I ran into Simon while I was shopping with a friend. I didn't greet him directly, but when I saw him, I decided to discreetly follow him to see if he was doing anything suspicious. Eventually, Simon met a woman who I initially assumed was just a friend, but the more I looked, the more I realized that that wasn't a friend. Come on, you wouldn't do to a mother what Simon did to his supposed friend unless you're a degenerate. I saw them walking together, buying some things, and finally entering a hotel. At that point, it was obvious this wasn't just casual flirting. No one cheats so blatantly weeks before their wedding unless it's something serious. From what I saw, Simon seemed genuinely concerned about this other woman. Unfortunately, I took a few photos, but my phone didn't take good photos from a distance, and it's not like I left home with professional equipment. Yet, when I got home, I started thinking about what to do next. Should I tell Lexi? Was it the right decision? Or would it just backfire on me? If I told Lexi, it was almost certain that she wouldn't believe me. Why would she trust someone she hates more than her own fiancé? And even if she did believe me, why should I help her after everything she's done to me and my husband? Despite my doubts, I decided to give her a chance. I called her and tried to appeal to her better nature. I asked her to talk to my husband and tell him that she didn't need the money. I explained to her how much we needed it and asked her to do me that favor for once. If she accepted, I would tell her the truth about Simon. She told me that it was her wedding and that she deserved a gift. So, if her brother wanted to give her one, she didn't understand why I had to get in the way. She even spoke rudely to me, as usual. At that point, I wished her the best for her marriage and hung up. Now, I'm stuck in a dilemma. Should I tell her the truth about Simon and potentially save her from disaster, or should I let her get married and face the consequences on her own? The wedding is in a few weeks, and I'm running out of time to decide. On one hand, I think she's just as bad as Simon, and she was probably also cheating on him. But a part of me that hates cheaters is tempted to tell her just for that. So, I'm between a rock and a hard place, between helping an entitled person or helping a cheater. What would you do? Update 3. Sorry for the delay, but here I am. The wedding happened a few days ago, but I wanted to wait a little because things kept happening almost all the time. Let me explain everything. Even on the wedding day, I was still in a dilemma about whether I was doing the right thing by keeping what I knew about Simon to myself. I felt bad letting my sister-in-law marry someone like him, but what happened during the wedding made me stop doubting my decision. During the wedding, I accidentally ran into Simon. Neither of us was looking where we were going, and he bumped into me lightly. He immediately started cursing me and asked me if I was blind. I apologized, explaining that I wasn't paying attention, but it wasn't enough for him. He started insulting me and calling me names, just like my sister-in-law, for something that was clearly an accident. I told him that just because it was his wedding didn't mean he could say whatever he wanted to me. Things escalated when he called me a very serious insult. I won't repeat it here, and I slapped him in the face. He grabbed a glass of juice and threw it in my face. At that moment, my husband arrived. He was furious and would have hit Simon if I hadn't stopped him. My husband demanded that Simon apologize for his actions, but Simon flatly refused and said he didn't care about us at all. Just then, my sister-in-law, Lexi, arrived. My husband was expecting her to take our side, but instead, she immediately blamed us. When Simon said he didn't want us at the wedding, she agreed with him and told us to leave. My husband was in shock. His own sister was kicking him out of the wedding. My in-laws were not happy about this either, but they could do nothing. However, my husband finally began to understand what I had been trying to tell him for years. My husband started arguing with her because he couldn't understand how she was able to throw him out after his generous gift, which wasn't the original $50,000, but was still quite generous. His sister told him that the gift didn't buy the possibility that I treated her husband badly, which was ridiculous because it was just an accident. So, I responded with the photos I had taken, which, Although they didn't look good, at least they were quite clear, showing her how her poor husband was probably running into another woman in a hotel. But Lexi had several things to say about that. First, the people in the photos could be anyone, although Simon's resemblance was great. And then, she said that if he was with another woman, it didn't matter too much. My husband asked, "What do you mean it doesn't matter too much?" And Lexi told him that they had an open relationship, so what Simon did in his free time was his business. Well, neither my husband nor his parents were expecting something like that, especially his parents, who are not used to such things, living on a farm. Not only because they don't believe in such things, but because having an open relationship on the farm is not as easy as in the city, where you have many places for that kind of thing. At that time, everyone started arguing. My husband was very upset about everything and told me he couldn't believe what was happening. I told him that he could very well believe it because it is exactly what I have been warning him about for a long time, and he decided not to believe me. Simon yelled something at me for showing the photos because, by then, everyone was yelling and ruining the wedding. But my husband told him not to scream if he knew what was best for him. Simon came up with a glass and hit him in the chest with it, splashing it on his clothes and asking, "What is it better for him?" So he got a slap from my husband, who threw him to the ground with a glass and everything. After that, both my in-laws and my husband and I left because we had basically been kicked out of the wedding. The whole trip back, my husband regretted having given her the money, but was happy for a moment when he realized that I'd set aside a part before he handed over everything. But that joy did not last long when I told him clearly that this was my money, it was for an emergency, and that he had no right over it. If he wanted to get the money back, he should ask his sister or start working overtime because I was not going to sacrifice anything to get that money back. It seems that something clicked inside him because the next day, he called his sister and asked for the money back. To my surprise, she gave it back. I thought she would say no, but she simply said it was okay because she already had the money from her parents, which was quite a bit more. Since he was her brother, he had not been too generous. Perhaps for her, it wasn't generous, but for us, it was a lot of money. As for the party, it continued after we left, but it was a little weird. According to what my in-laws have told us, they are still devastated, but they cannot say that they did not have signs to see all this. These last few days, things have been happening, conflicting versions between my in-laws and my sister-in-law, and a lot of fuss about what happened at the wedding, not just the fight, but the revelation of the open marriage. So, as I said, I have taken the time to wait to give you a full update. For example, an aunt of my husband called me yesterday to gossip about the wedding. She was also thrown out because she saw Simon flirting with a waitress. And even though it was just something nice that he said to that girl, this chick hadn't heard about the open marriage. Although I don't think she would have understood it either. So, when she said something to Simon, she also earned the exit door. At least this aunt had only given her some kitchen utensils. And no, she is not the aunt Lexi lived with. If anything good came out of all this, it is that Hal has at least seen his sister as she is. And that has transformed him in a certain way. He has been working overtime at his job because, although he has recovered the money, he wants to compensate me for somehow getting the money we need for repairs and stuff as soon as possible without touching our savings. Update 4. I always said it would be best if Lexi got married and walked away from our lives, and for a brief period of time, that was exactly what happened. However, the peace did not last long, and now everything is much more complicated. Lexi is officially divorced, which will be a little confusing, I know. My in-laws, unfortunately, did not recover the money they gave to Lexi. A significant part was spent on their extravagant wedding, and the other part was lost in the divorce process. Honestly, if they had at least had something memorable, like a giraffe at the wedding, maybe it would have been worth it, but nobody listens to my ideas. But getting serious again, Lexi's divorce was not only a financial disaster, but also a personal one. Funny enough, I don't want to sound like a bombshell because I understand how open marriages work. It's not something I would practice, but I'm not opposed to others doing it. However, I firmly believe that if you choose that type of relationship, it should be with someone trustworthy and you should set clear boundaries. Or not. I guess someone who has experience in these things can tell us in the comments. Anyway, Simon clearly was not that person, Nor can I completely blame Simon because Lexi is not someone who inspires confidence. Neither of them had the maturity or respect necessary to handle a relationship so complex. According to Lexi, Simon cheated on her. Although it sounds strange, she herself said that she didn't care who he was with, but now that he has gone with someone younger, which I don't know how much younger he can be than Lexi, and he took half of her money, it is a scam. Anyway, Lexi filed for divorce, and the process was anything but friendly. In the end, the state divided the assets equally because, although there is a divorce for fault, you need strong evidence to prove that he was cheating on you. When you have been so vocal about your open relationship, there isn't much room to build a case. So Lexi lost a lot of my in-laws' money, and hers too. Lexi has tried to reconcile with her parents after all this, but my in-laws don't want to hear about it. My parents-in-law are good people. They have always wanted the best for their children, but this experience left them devastated. I don't agree with some comments that say they deserved it. They just wanted to help, and I think it's cruel to blame them for having good intentions. I know this won't be a happy ending, but I want to share some positive aspects of my life to make up for it. We've finally started home repairs. We have also planned a small road trip, nothing fancy. Hal worked very hard to save the money needed without touching our savings. We are not in a position to have children yet. We both understand how expensive and challenging it can be to raise a family in these times, so we decided to wait a couple more years. In the meantime, I'm working really hard for a promotion at my job. If all goes well, it could mean even more stability for us in the future, so wish me luck. I really need it. Another good thing that turned out of all this is the fact that Lexi still lives in her town, so at least she stays away. But she has come back from time to time to try to repair the relationship with her parents and my husband, but she hasn't had much luck with that. So, the peace has been restored for the moment, and I hope it continues like this. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.